Welcome everyone, I'm Gavin Lon. By the end of this course, you'll have a modern, production-ready deployment pipeline for a full-stack Blazor e-commerce application. Every time you push your code to GitHub, your application will automatically build, publish a Docker image, deploy it to your VPS, and go live without manually copying files to a server. That's exactly what we're going to build together. We'll take a single-page application, SPA, written in Blazor on .NET 10, and deploy it to a Linux VPS hosted on Hostinger using Docker containers. Along the way, we'll build a complete CI/CD, continuous integration, continuous deployment pipeline that automates the journey from your development machine all the way to production. This isn't just about getting an application online. It's about learning the deployment workflow used by modern software teams. You'll learn how to containerize a full-stack Blazor application using Docker and Docker Compose. Use Blazor Hot Reload inside Docker so you can develop efficiently without constantly rebuilding your application. Configure separate development and production environments. Automate your deployments with GitHub Actions. Publish Docker images to DockerHub. Deploy those images automatically to a Hostinger VPS. When we're finished, deploying a new version of our application is as simple as pushing your latest code to GitHub. GitHub Actions will compile your application, build a Docker image, push it to DockerHub, and your production server will automatically pull the latest version and update your live website. This is the kind of workflow that saves hours of repetitive deployment work while making releases faster, more reliable, and much less stressful. The application itself is built with C# Blazor on .NET 10 and SQL Server running in Docker containers, giving you a modern, portable architecture that can be deployed consistently across environments. Today's software development isn't just about writing code anymore. AI is changing how we build applications. But understanding how these systems fit together, architecture, deployment, automation, testing, and infrastructure is becoming more valuable than ever. Those are the skills that help you build software that doesn't just work on your machine, but works reliably in production. For hosting, we'll be using Hostinger. Hostinger is an all-in-one hosting platform that provides VPS hosting, domains, SSL certificates, email hosting, and an excellent management dashboard. One feature I particularly like is their Docker Manager, which makes deploying containerized applications straightforward without requiring you to become a Linux expert. If you've ever wanted to host your own applications, launch an online business, or deploy professional web applications without spending a fortune on cloud infrastructure, Hostinger offers an excellent balance of affordability, performance, and ease of use. I've used a number of hosting providers over the years, and what stands out to me about Hostinger is its combination of competitive pricing, fast infrastructure, beginner-friendly tools, and reliable support. Hostinger offers an excellent platform for both beginners and experts alike. If you'd like to follow along exactly as I do in this course, head over to this special URL provided to me by Hostinger to make it easy for you to sign up for this VPS, Virtual Private Server plan that I'm using in this course. So please navigate to this URL, https://hostinger.com/Gavin Lon. Then click the Choose Plan button here. And this is the plan we want, the KVM 2 plan. So to proceed with this plan, click the Choose Plan button within the panel that represents the KVM 2 plan here. Then if you click this drop down here, you can choose the period for your plan. For the best value, it is recommended that you choose 24 months. If you choose either 12 months or 24 months, i.e. one of the yearly plans, you can take advantage of a 10% discount off the total purchase price by entering the coupon code GavinLon. So to do that, click Have a Coupon Code and enter GavinLon into the text box that will appear below the link. Then click the Apply button. Then it's a case of clicking the Continue button and registering for a Hostinger account if you haven't yet got one, and then setting up your VPS, your virtual private server. Note that once you are logged into Hostinger, if you get stuck at any point, you can make use of Hostinger's AI service and ask any questions you may have. For example, you may have questions about setting up your VPS, but you'll see that the setting up of your VPS is pretty straightforward. Before we get started with the tutorial, I'll provide a brief guide on how to set up your VPS so that you can run Docker containers on Linux Ubuntu and make use of Hostinger's Docker Manager facility. Now it's just a case of setting up the VPS. So then, choose your server location. Then click the Next button. You can see that the Plain OS tab is selected and we have a number of options to choose from. So I'm going to choose the option labeled Ubuntu. Then select the version of Ubuntu. I think it's best to stick with what's recommended, i.e. the latest stable release, which at the time of recording is Ubuntu 24.04 LTS, long-term support. So press the Select button. Then create a root password for your VPS. Use this password to log into your VPS as root. Keep it secure and store it safely, as it gives full access to your server. So choose your password and then press Next. Then it is important that this Docker Manager option is checked. Deploy and manage containers with ease. You can also launch them directly from a repository URL. We'll look at this in detail during this course. Now, with that done, let's jump into the tutorial and I'll show you exactly how we can set up a CI/CD pipeline for our Blazor E-Commerce application from development to production. And I'll show you how to do this step by step. Let's get started. Note that because we are covering a lot of ground in this video, I won't cover the inclusion of automated tests in our deployment pipeline. So ordinarily you'd want your code changes to pass relevant tests before deployed to production. I intend to cover this in a follow-up video. Although this application leverages Blazor and SQL Server, you don't need to know anything about these technologies to automate the deployment of the application from development to production. We don't need to write any code when following along with this video, as the project has already been coded and the code can be found at this location on GitHub. So you can easily go through the details of the code and play around with the code yourself and learn a lot about how modern Blazor applications work. For those of you completely unfamiliar with Blazor, Blazor is Microsoft's web UI framework for building interactive web applications using C# and .NET instead of JavaScript for most application logic. It lets you create reusable UI components and can run on the server or the client. Blazor Server. UI updates are handled on the server over a real-time SignalR connection. The GarageSale application uses server-side rendering and uses a SignalR connection from the server to client for real-time browser updates, as a consequence of certain user interactions with the UI. Blazor WebAssembly, WASM. The application runs directly in the browser using WebAssembly. Blazor is a great choice for .NET developers because it allows code sharing between client and server, integrates well with the ASP.NET Core ecosystem, and provides a component-based development model similar to frameworks like React or Angular. So this GarageSale e-commerce application is a great example of a modern Blazor application coded on what currently is the latest stable release of .NET 10. Docker demonstrates that you don't necessarily need an in-depth understanding of an application's underlying technologies to successfully deploy it or build a CI/CD pipeline. By containerizing the application and its dependencies, Docker abstracts away much of the complexity, allowing deployment and automation processes to be implemented consistently across different environments. There's a distinct separation of concerns between creating the code logic and setting up the automation of deployment. The DevOps tasks are abstracted away from the technologies like, for example, Blazor or SQL Server that make up the application's logic and database storage. Docker Compose, Docker files, and the containerization technology in general make this possible. You could just as easily have used, for example, Next.js and Postgres to build this e-commerce application, but I have chosen Blazor and SQL Server. The deployment pipeline would still be very similar. So built into the architecture is a distinct separation of concerns. The developers can use whatever programming languages, frameworks, database management systems with which they prefer to build the logic of the application. For example, you could code the application in Go, Python, JavaScript, C# or whatever. And a DevOps team, for example, doesn't need to know the details of these languages to automate the deployment of the application or facilitate a complete CI/CD, continuous integration, continuous deployment pipeline. So to run the GarageSale application, all you need to do is clone the project into a local folder on your development machine. Then create a .env file in the root of the project and add two environment variable settings. The first setting is labeled SA_password and must be set to a specific password value. GarageSale_!! This is the password used to connect the Blazor application to a SQL Server database. The second setting is labeled DB_name and is set to GarageSale, which is the name of the database running within the Docker container that hosts the SQL Server 2022 image. I'll provide you with a more comprehensive demonstration of how to get set up with the app on your local machine in just a bit. The SQL Server 2022 Docker image is pulled from a Microsoft server when the relevant Docker Compose command is appropriately run. These two environment variable settings are critical for you to be able to launch the application using Docker Compose. I recommend that you install Docker Desktop on your development machine so that you can run the various Docker commands on your local development machines. Note that this application will run on both Mac and Windows, and you are able to download a version of Docker Desktop for both Mac and Windows operating systems. Note that there are two additional settings that can be set in the .env file, which are related to AI functionality that has been integrated into the application. The application will still work without these two AI-related settings, but it will mean that one feature will currently not work. But note that the core functionality of the e-commerce application will work without these two AI-related settings. I'll go into more detail regarding the AI-related functionality a bit later in the video. So once you have configured the .env file with at least the SA password setting and the DB name setting, you can run this Docker Compose command from VS Code in your terminal window, where your current directory is set to the location where the relevant .csproj project file is stored, so the root directory of the project. This Docker Compose command will launch two Docker containers in a Docker network. One that hosts the Blazor application, the application's logic, and the other, a Docker container that hosts a SQL Server database. You can tell from this command that we are running a specific Docker Compose file named docker-compose.dev.yaml. This is the development version of the Docker Compose file. you can see there is another Docker Compose file named docker-compose.yaml, i.e. without the .dev in it. And that is the production version of the Docker Compose file. The production version is run when we deploy our application to Hostinger through Hostinger's Docker Manager utility. The docker-compose.dev.yaml file references the development version of the Docker file that defines the Blazor application's Docker image. This development version of the Docker file is named dockerfile.dev, so we've got the .dev in it. The file named Dockerfile, just Dockerfile without the .dev, defines the image for the Blazor application that runs in a Docker container in the production environment. The development version of the docker-compose file, i.e. docker-compose.dev.yaml, and dockerfile.dev have been tailored specifically to leverage Blazor's Hot Reload feature. Hot Reload in Blazor lets you see code changes in your running app without stopping and starting it. So you can see those code changes in real time. For example, change a Razor component, .razor, or Razor component CSS file. The UI updates immediately and reflects the change immediately in the browser. Modify C# logic. Where supported, the app applies the change on the fly. So this is an excellent feature to have available in your development environment and can greatly enhance your efficiency when building your Blazor applications. Okay, so right out of the gates, you have a super efficient development environment set up for your Blazor application. We will then focus on deploying the application to a VPS hosted on Hostinger. The key technologies involved in automating this development process are VS Code, or Visual Studio Code, and the VS Code terminal window, Docker Desktop, GitHub, GitHub Workflow Action, DockerHub, and Hostinger's Docker Manager facility. So let's look at the deployment process. When we check in our code for the first time into our GitHub repo, this will automatically trigger or run a GitHub workflow action that will compile the latest Blazor code into a Docker image and push that image to a repository hosted on DockerHub. We can then deploy our application to Hostinger by pointing Hostinger to the relevant docker-compose.yaml file in our GitHub repository. We then set up the environment variables on Hostinger and click the deploy button. Once that initial deployment has been done, we essentially have created a CI/CD, continuous integration, continuous deployment pipeline. So the hard part is now over. And this means that now, when we make changes to our code within our development environment, we can use the Hot Reload feature to see our changes propagate to the browser immediately. And then we can simply check in our code changes into GitHub, which will set into motion the automatic deployment of the latest code to our production environment hosted on Hostinger. So, in effect, you now have a CI/CD, continuous integration, continuous deployment pipeline in place. So I hope you're liking this video so far. If so, please hit that like button and please consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't yet done so. And please don't forget to ring the bell so that you'll be notified of future content released from this channel. Please share this content with anyone you feel may gain value from it. If you'd like to thank me by buying me a coffee, you can do that at my Buy Me a Coffee webpage at this URL. It will of course be greatly appreciated. Please let me know in the comments section what you are currently building and what technologies you are using. And I'd also be absolutely fascinated as to where in the world you're commenting from. Of course, all comments are welcome. I love reading your comments and insights. I think it would be great if you followed me on X. My username is @GavinLonDigital. Right, let's get back into our Blazor e-commerce application. So I'm going to firstly show you how to get started with the GarageSale application so that you can clone the code to your development environment and run it. I'll then demonstrate the application and show you how you can deploy the application to Hostinger and in effect set up a CI/CD, continuous integration, continuous deployment pipeline. Great, let's get started. Okay, so to get started with this application, this GarageSale application, we first want to clone the repository, the GarageSale repository, to our local machines. Okay, so I've got my root directory set to cdev here. You can see that's my current directory. So I want the GarageSale directory, the root of my project, to reside in cdev here. So I'm all set up to do that. Okay, so if I go to GitHub here, we have the GarageSale repository, and we want to clone this repository locally. So one way of doing it, you can first go here, go hit this down arrow here on this code button. So you hit that there, and you've got this file path here to garagesale.git, which contains all the details we need. So I'm going to copy that to my clipboard, and then I'm going to run the relevant git command, which is git clone, and then we just paste that in there, and it will create a local version of the code in cdev. Basically, that's all that's going to do. So if I press the enter key, cloning GarageSale, and it's doing the business for us. Excellent. Brilliant. Resolved 100%. That looks good. It's clear the screen. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to open a new window and of Visual Studio Code, just to make things a bit easier. And then I'm going to go into GarageSale here. So that's the GarageSale directory that I've just created within cdev, and we've got our project there available for us. And you can see we've got the dockerfile.dev file, and we've got the dockercompose.dev YAML file, and we're going to be using the Docker Compose file here, the dev version of the file, to launch our application. So I'm just going to hit Control and then tilde character to launch the terminal window, and I'm going to run a Docker Compose file to launch the application. So how you do that is you type docker compose -f, because we want to run a specific Docker Compose file. We wouldn't need the -f if we were running docker-compose.yaml, because by convention, it would recognize that that's the file we want to run. But we are wanting to run the development version of the Docker Compose file, so we must specify -f in the command and then the relevant file name. So docker compose.dev.yml YAML, and then we need the up command in there. So go out of that there to give us some room. So the up command, and then -d, we want to run it in detached mode, and then --build, because we want to build the code. And that all looks pretty good. And then we can just press the enter key, and it now builds the Docker containers. So you will have to have Docker Desktop. I recommend having Docker Desktop running locally so that you can run these files, and it can pull the relevant images down and run them as Docker containers on your local machine. 6 of 7, 7 of 7. Excellent. So it's built the GarageSale container, and it's building the GarageSale SQL Server container, and it's doing a health check. And hopefully everything's in order. Waiting for the health check to be completed to make sure that the SQL Server database is up and running and we can connect to it. And that's actually going to fail because I forgot something. I forgot to create the .env file. You shall see that that will fail because the Blazor application will not be able to connect to the database because we haven't included the credentials within the .env file. We want to include all security sensitive data outside of the actual code files, and we want to include that in a .env file. So we need to include the SQL Server password for the SA user outside of, for example, the Docker Compose files or any files like that. We want to include it in a hidden .env file that will not be uploaded to GitHub when we check in our code. So this is why this is hanging and this isn't working, and it will fail. There you go. So we've got an error that's occurred, and let's clear the screen, the terminal window, and we want to make sure that no Docker containers are actually running. So to do that, we go docker compose -f and then docker compose.dev.yaml and then down. We include the down command. This is to ensure that no Docker Compose files are left over running. We don't want any of them running at the moment. Okay, great. Removed. So great. So now we can continue. I'm going to clear the screen, and we need to create that .env file, and we want to create that right in the root of the project, the GarageSale project. And to do that, we click this new file icon here. .env is the file we want, and now we can include the settings we need. And I've actually got these settings already created off screen. I'm just going to paste them in here. So you need the SA password, GarageSale strong. This is just GarageSale_strong, but the G here is capitalized, the S is capitalized here, and the S here is capitalized, and then this O is in fact a 0, and then we've got an exclamation point for the password there, and then the database name is GarageSale. So make sure that you've got these settings in place before you run Docker Compose, and then it should work correctly. I'm just going to test that now. Docker Compose -f docker-compose.dev.yml up. Don't forget the up command, -d, because I want to run it in detached mode, and then -- build. And let's run that. And now it should build those without a problem. And it's built that pretty fast because a lot of that would have been cached. And then we've got GarageSale SQL Server, and it's waiting for that health check. Healthy, it's up and running. And let's just double check that that is up and running. So localhost, port 8080. And there it is. Our GarageSale application is now running, up and running. And that's how you can get the app up and running so that you can follow along with the next section where I'll just take you through the application and give you a basic demonstration. And then after that, we'll deploy the application to Hostinger and create our CI/CD pipeline. Excellent. Okay, so let's launch the GarageSale application. As you can see here, we've got this docker-compose.dev.yaml file. If we look at this, we can see that this has been written so that it launches a SQL Server database running in its own container here. And you can see we've exposed 1433 as the port. The version of SQL Server is the latest version, 2022 latest. And then we are launching the GarageSale Blazor application in its own container. And of course, the Blazor application is communicating with the SQL Server database, running it in its container there. And we'll look at more of the detail of this a little bit later. For now, all I want to do is launch the containers. And to do that, we can run this command, docker compose -f. We use the -f because we want to use a particular compose file, this one, docker-compose.dev.yaml. And then we enter that file name, docker-compose.dev.yml, YAML, and then -d, because we want to run it in detached mode, --build. We want to build the code before it runs. Okay, so let's run that. Let's press the enter key. Oops, we have a bit of an issue there. I didn't include up. So we need to include the up option because we want our containers to run. Docker compose -f, then the file, the Docker compose file we want to run, up, -d, and then --build. Press the enter key. And there it is. It's composing our containers. That's looking good. It's right. So all the containers are now up and running. Okay, let's launch the application, and it should be running on localhost port 8080. That, and there it is. Great. So our application is running, and you can see here we've got in this carousel that I've created using Bootstrap, we've got all the sellers. So this is Bob's bargain sale, and we can actually scroll through by using the arrows here. They're a little bit faint, but there they are. You can see them, and they should scroll automatically like that. So Wendy's wonderful weekend sale, and we've got John's gigantic sale there. And if you want to say, look at John's or Bob's bargain sale, you just click on it like that, and it'll show all the products that Bob is selling. And here they are. And the way I've actually retrieved the products through code is I've grouped them by their various categories. So this is the electronics category here at the top, and then you've got the furniture category here, and then you've got the boots or shoes category here, and then you've got, or footwear rather, and then you've got the bedding category, followed by the bicycle category, the camping category, and backpacks there. And these are all the products that Bob is selling in his bargain sale here. Great. And so you could go back home, and now you can see that these are all the featured products pertaining to all three of these sellers. We only have 3 sellers currently, but of course that could be scaled up to hundreds of sellers or thousands of sellers if you wanted. So here we have beauty products at the top here, and then followed by electronics, and then followed by furniture. And we have a lot of furniture, and then we have footwear and bedding, bicycles, camping. Oh, they got a product here selling for $24,500. Hammer Camp CL Coach Built Motorhome. Wow, okay. And then we've got this vintage custom painted retro coach built motorhome. So lots of products, and these are all the featured products here. And of course we can select a particular seller, and that filters the product based on what this particular seller, in this case John's gigantic sale, is selling to the public. Okay, great. So let's go to the home page here where we've got all the products, and I just want to show you this feature here. You can filter the products by categories here. So for example, beauty. So we've only got the beauty products displayed to us. So you got electronics, and you've only got the electronics products displayed, and footwear, and so on. And of course now we've got all the products displayed. And if you wanted to go into a particular seller's garage, you could go to Wendy's, for example, Wendy's weekend sale, and you can also filter on her product. So electronics, she's only selling 2 products here. Let's see, so beauty, and she's selling quite a few beauty items, and footwear. We've got some footwear that Wendy's selling, and you can go home, and then if you wanted to go to Bob's garage, you can do the same thing and perform various searches. Excellent. So let's go to the home page, and let's see if there's a product that we want to buy. So let's see, what do we have here? Okay, that looks quite good, but I want to get this modern L-shaped corner writing desk. So how do I buy a product? We first select the product. Okay, so we first got to authenticate with the system before we can see the details of the product and then buy the product. So I've actually automated the process of adding a few users. So I've loaded a particular user called Kevin Anderson, and I'm going to use his credentials. So Kevin Anderson at hotmail.com. This is Kevin's credentials, and then the password. You can also use this password because it's loading 5 particular users when the application first loads. So you can also use these credentials to log on and play around with the system. These are just, of course, test credentials. And the password is TEMP123 followed by the $symbol and then the exclamation symbol. And then we can log in, and we can now view the details of the product. So we can see it's in the furniture category. Its condition is good. What I've actually added to the system is an AI feature where an admin can log on and provide admin reviews pertaining to the condition of the relevant products in the system. And then when the admin submits that particular admin review, we are using OpenAI. We're calling an OpenAI API, and it is returning a sentiment based on the admin review itself. So the admin review is entered using natural language. It gets sent off to an API endpoint on OpenAI, and OpenAI sends back one of the following words. So it's either going to be excellent, good, okay, bad, or terrible. Each word or sentiment, say for example, excellent, has an associated quantitative value. So excellent has the quantitative value of 1 assigned to it, good 2, okay 3, bad 4, and terrible 5. So I'm able to, by doing that, I'm able to actually influence how the products are displayed to the user. And we'll look at that in a little bit more detail a little bit later. In other words, it's the order in which the products are displayed are from excellent down to terrible per category. All the products are ordered by category, and this is just for the convenience of the user, so the user can automatically see which products are in the best condition. So that's just an example of how we can integrate intelligence into our applications. Okay, so we can now see the description: a contemporary and space-saving L-shaped corner computer desk, features a durable wood-like laminated surface and a soft gray-brown finish, supported by a sturdy minimalist metal frame. So we've got the description, and we've decided, hey, we like this product. So Kevin Anderson's decided he likes the product and he wants to add it to his cart, and all he does to do that is click this massive add to cart button. So let's click that, and you can see the effect of clicking that button. First of all, add to cart, the status is outputted to the user, and we have an increment of 1 here, which means, of course, the cart now has an item in it. So let's say we want to continue shopping. We go back to the home page, and we really like this camera here. So let's add that to our shopping cart. Let's first read the description: a professional grade digital single lens, blah, blah, blah. We love it. It's good condition. And Bob's Garage Sale, we've had good experiences with Bob and his garage sale. So let's add that to the shopping cart. Added to cart is displayed to us, and of course it has been incremented by 2 here in the header. You can see how these components are communicating with one another. So this is because of the excellent state management provided through dependency injection through Blazor, but we'll look at the details of that a little bit later. So when the add to cart button is clicked, an event is fired, and this component, a method within this component, is then executed, which increments this badge display by a value of 1. So you can see how many items that you have in your shopping cart at any given moment right up here. So it's a great status display for the user. So the user can automatically see how many items are in the user's shopping cart. And if you actually press this again, it tells you this item is already in your cart, so you can't add it twice. Great. So let's go to the home page, and what else do we want? We've got some furniture. We've got an electronics item. Let's get some footwear. I like this. Okay, boots. Excellent. So let's purchase this, and we've got the same effect. So we've got 3 items in our shopping cart, and let's say we like Bob's bargain sale. So let's go into Bob's Garage in particular, and we like this lamp. This is a great lamp. This is the lamp I've always wanted. It's got this exquisite design, and we are going to purchase this navy blue and white chevron ceramic table lamp. And to do that, all we do is press the add to cart button here. And you can see the effect of that. We've now got 4 items in our shopping cart. So let's look at our shopping cart. And there it is. We've got the display of all the products all displayed here neatly within our shopping cart. And we could actually remove an item. Let's say we've decided against getting this camera. We've heard some bad reviews. So let's remove that item. And of course, it automatically affects the total cost of all the items that we have in our shopping cart. And let's remove this navy blue and white chevron. We've fallen out of love with this lamp, and we're going to remove it. Okay, great. Excellent. So now we're going to purchase these 2 items. So to do that, we go proceed to checkout, and we've got a different display here, but it summarizes all the items, $32, and we can now place an order. Great, order placed. Thank you for purchasing. Your order reference is #1, and we can now continue shopping and notice that the shopping cart has been emptied, which makes a lot of sense because we've actually placed an order and we're going to be waiting for our order now to be delivered. Let's continue shopping. We've actually decided we haven't finished our shopping. We've wanted to buy particular items, but now we've decided, hey, we're enjoying ourselves and we want to purchase a few more items. And I've always wanted an Apple MacBook Pro 15-inch laptop, Retina Display Edition. It's only $50, so I can't resist that. So I'm going to add that to my cart. Let's actually filter the homepage by bicycles because I want some bicycles. So I really like the design of this particular bicycle, Twin Rock Rider, hardtail mountain bike, $45 bargain. Let's add that to our cart. Let's go to the home page here. Great 55-inch curved 4K smart LED TV with remote. Can't resist that. I'm going to buy that. And let's go to the checkout and order our product, $145. Place our order. Excellent. So let's continue shopping. Okay, so maybe one more order. Let's order this Gothic Baroque style ornate throne chair. Okay, let's add that to the cart. You can see we've got 1 item there, and let's create another order, proceed to checkout, and place an order. So we've made 3 orders on the GarageSale application. Excellent. So now let's look at it from the point of view of a different user. So firstly, the user needs to create an account. So let's do that. Let's register this particular user. So register. So email is going to be, this guy's name is Robert McLeod. At hotmail.com. So we got Robert McLeod. I'm just going to make his password something easy. So I'm going to go capital P, password 1, exclamation point. Let's confirm the password. Great. First name is Robert. And I've created a street address for him. So we're saying that this application, this particular instance of the application pertains to people that live in Indiana. So these are obviously just fictional addresses that I've created for the purpose, for this demonstration, for demonstration purposes and testing purposes. Okay, so let's say the address is 613 Oak Hollow, CT. City is Carmel, and the state is IN, and the zip code is 46032. And now, if we look here, this is all to do with how we've built intelligence into how we can build intelligence into the application. So when a user registers, they can actually submit which categories they're interested in, which product categories they're interested in. And this will affect how the products are displayed to the particular registered user. For example, if the user selects bicycles, electronics, and camping, these are the products that will be displayed first to the user. Great. So that looks good. Let's create an account for Robert McLeod. Create an account and welcome, Robert. We've been logged in automatically, but let's log out. Okay, let's try and log in as Robert McLeod. So Robert McLeod at hotmail.com. Password. Let's see if we can log in. Great. So we're logged in as Robert McLeod. Excellent. And you can see here, note how you see Kevin Anderson bought a few items. So we're still displaying the product, but we are indicating that the product has been sold on the front end through a design decision here. So it's got sold in the top right hand corner, and the product is grayed out. So we can see immediately that those products are no longer available. And let's look, they've got another one here. Remember, we bought this 55-inch curved 4K smart LED TV with remote, so that is no longer available. Great. So the user can see automatically what products are available and what products are not available. Great. So you can see also here that the products that, if you'll recall, he selected electronics, bicycles, and camping. And you can see that these product categories are presented to Robert firstly on the UI, followed by the rest of the products. Okay, excellent. So let's purchase some products for Robert. He likes this 55-inch slim LED flat screen smart TV. So Robert goes in and adds it to his cart. You can see the increment has occurred there as expected. And let's go to the camping category, directly to the camping category. And let's say he's going to make a big purchase now. So he wants this Heimer Camp CL coach built motorhome. So he goes this $24,500, and he's going to make this big purchase. So he adds that to his cart, and you can see there's 2 items in his cart now. And then we go back here, and he wants, what does he want now? Robert wants, he doesn't want beauty items, but he does want this modern whitewashed dining table with 8-chair set. So he adds that to his cart. Now he's got 3 items. And of course, he's decided he's going to purchase this, but maybe he's not so keen on the modern whitewashed dining table with 8-chair set, so he removes that. He's already making a gigantic purchase with this camper van, or motorhome rather, and so he proceeds to check out and places the order. Great. And of course, now that he's placed the order, you can see that his shopping cart has automatically been emptied, and he has made his purchases, and you can see that now the products that he has purchased are no longer available to be purchased. You can see that on the UI immediately. So anyone else who logs on and wants to buy a product from the garage through the GarageSale application can now see immediately at a glance which products are available and which products are not available. Great, so let's log out as Robert now. And now we want to log in as an administrator. And he's a fella by the name of Michael Thompson. So Michael Thompson at hotmail.com. And there's password for the administrator, and you can also log in as an administrator if you want to follow along. And the password for the administrator is ADMIN, so capital ADMIN, followed by 1, 2, 3, then the dollar symbol, then the exclamation symbol, and you can log in as Mike Thompson, and you're an administrator, and you can see that this admin menu automatically shows up because you've logged on with admin credentials. And you can actually go to the order history here, and you can see the orders placed by Robert McLeod and Kevin Anderson. Excellent. So you can review the relevant orders as an administrator. And I've just added this feature here, clear orders. And this is just for testing purposes, of course, where you can actually just clear out the orders, which will set the status of the product back to available, essentially. So you won't see the products grayed out on the UI anymore. Okay. And so now the feature that I want to draw your attention to is the AI feature. Now, what this AI feature allows the admin to do, because this is a service provided by the GarageSale application where they have an independent evaluator that goes round to a registered seller and reviews their products just in natural language, basically discusses the condition of the product. So, for example, I'm logged in, of course, as an admin now, and I can also search for the products that I want to review and click them, And then I've got this additional button here that an ordinary user doesn't have. Review product condition. So if I click that button, we're brought to this page here where we can enter in natural language a review of the actual product, the condition of the product. So let's say we really like this product. So I think this product is fantastic and it exceeded my expectations in terms of its overall condition. Okay, now if we save this review, what it's going to do is it's going to submit that along with a base prompt to OpenAI, and OpenAI is going to return a sentiment based on this admin review entered in natural language. So let's save the review and let's see what happens. So sentiment has come back as excellent. Review has been saved. Now you'll see that this will affect where this product is actually displayed on the UI. So if we go back to the home page, look at it. It's now placed this product right at the top. I don't think it was placed at the top before, but it is now. And we can go in and amend this review just to ensure that it is affecting where the product is ordered when displayed on the home page, for example. So if we say this product is not fit to be purchased, I was surprised by. So it's a very human kind of review is what I'm trying to drive at. And then we let the AI decide what sentiment should be attached to the review entered in natural language. So I was surprised by the poor quality. Okay, so let's submit that review and see what sentiment is brought back. Terrible. So the sentiment is terrible. So it's the worst possible rating for the condition of a product. So let's go, if we go back to the home page, you'll see it's affected the order in which it's displayed. So you can see now the product has been displayed right at the bottom here because it is in such a poor condition. And that's just the intelligence that I've built into the application, specifically to demonstrate how you can integrate intelligence into a Blazor application. And that is basically the application, a very basic demonstration of the application. Let's log out. Okay, and one thing I guess I could demonstrate is, well, let's log in as admin again. So we want to log in as Michael Thompson at hotmail.com. Capital A, admin, 123, $, exclamation mark. Let's log in. Okay. Michael Thompson. Sorry, spelled Michael incorrectly there. Admin, 123, $, exclamation point, log in. Great, so we're logged in as admin, and what I can do here is just clear all the orders. Okay, this will permanently delete all orders and order history. Continue. Okay, so now if we go to the home page, you'll see that all the products are available again, and that's, of course, I've built that feature in just for testing purposes, testing and demo purposes, so that we can reinitialize the application very quickly. Okay, great. And that is basically our GarageSale application. Brilliant. Okay, so now I'm going to show you how we can go from source code on GitHub to a fully deployed application running on a VPS on Hostinger. We are going to use Docker, GitHub Actions, and Hostinger's Docker Manager facility to deploy our GarageSale application. Then I'll show you how we can create a CI/CD, continuous integration, continuous deployment pipeline. So we check in our code into GitHub. Our action workflow builds the code. An image is created through our GitHub action. That image is then pushed, registered on DockerHub, on our DockerHub account. And then we deploy using the Docker Manager facility on Hostinger. We deploy that application. And how that works is it pulls that Docker image and launches it on our VPS on Hostinger. So let's get started. Okay, firstly, we want to create a folder to house our code. So I'm going to host mine on C dev here. I'm going to create a new folder. So new folder. I'm going to call this GarageSale deploy. The original code is in my GitHub repository called GarageSale. So I want to differentiate GarageSale from GarageSale deploy here because this is for demonstration purposes so that I can show you how we can deploy the GarageSale application and deploy our application using Docker containers onto our VPS hosted on Hostinger. So we've got our GarageSale deploy folder there. So I'm going to go into VS Code and I'm going to open up that folder. Open folder, and there we have GarageSale deploy. Double click that, select folder. So we've got a nice empty folder there where we can create our application, and the application is already created. We don't need to code anything. All we're going to do is clone this repository here. We're going to run a command here to clone this repository, and I'll show you how we can do that right now. Firstly, we want our terminal window launched. So to do that, you go Control, then the tilde character. And now we want to clone the GitHub repository, and that's on my GitHub. That's in my GitHub account. Of course, I'm the owner of the account. You won't have permissions to that repository, which means you won't be able to check in the code directly to the GarageSale repo. But what I want you to do is create your own GarageSale deploy repo, which I'm also going to do, and then we're going to deploy the code to GarageSale deploy. Then the appropriate image will be created and pushed and deployed to Hostinger, and I'll show you the automation process involved in doing all that in just a bit. So for now, we're going to clone the code from the GarageSale repo onto our local machines within a new folder called GarageSale deploy. So the command for that is git clone, and then HTTPS. Whoops, we want to have the exact path of this particular file. So it's github.com, then my account name, Gavin Lawn Digital, and then the repo name is GarageSale and then .git like this, and it should clone that repo within our local folder, GarageSale deploy. Okay, so press the enter key, cloning GarageSale, and there it is. It's doing the business for us. Awesome. Just as always with these sort of things, we have to be a little bit patient, a little bit zen, and chill out while it does its thing. So this will give us a local working copy of the code. You won't actually have permissions to the original code on GitHub. So in a bit, we'll create a new repo on our GitHub accounts. So obviously your GitHub account's different from mine. So we're going to create a GitHub repository named GarageSale deploy. So even though I have permissions to check my code changes into the original GarageSale repo that houses the original code on GitHub, I'm going to create a new repo on GitHub called GarageSale deploy just for demo purposes. Great, so that's now actually finished. So that's wonderful. So we now got our code here within the GarageSale deploy root directory. We've got a local copy of the code here. You can see all these Blazor icons. It's a Blazor application. Great, so one thing we need to do is create a .env file. That's because you don't want to upload your .env files to GitHub. So we're going to have to manually create that, and I'll show you the relevant settings that you've got to include in your env file. So this .env file hosts all the environment variables that you don't want publicly known. So this is a way for us to store those environment variables that we don't want publicly known. So I'm going to create a .env file within the GarageSale folder like this. Okay, .env. I'm going to copy those settings from here. I'm just going to copy these in there, and I'll explain them to you now. So this is the password for SA, the user SA on the SQL Server database that will be hosted within a container. If you look here, we are spinning up a container here with the SQL Server database that I'm actually going to seed when the application first loads. It seeds a whole bunch of product information and user information when the application first loads. You can see that in the program.cs file here. It's seeding that database. It's running a few migrations, which builds the database, the database schema for the GarageSale database. And then here we are adding users so that you can just automatically log into the application. Those users are automatically loaded, and it's automatically seeding the data with product information. So let's go back to the .env file. That's the password for the SQL Server database. That's the database name, GarageSale. This is the OpenAI key, and you will need to create one for yourself on OpenAI. I'll show you how to do that in a bit, but you don't have to do that if you don't want to, because you will have to pay a minimum of $10, I think, to get an API key like this. But the vast majority of the application is going to work without this OpenAI key. So you'll only need it if you want to run a certain admin feature. But the consequences of not having the OpenAI key are not severe. You'll still be able to run the application, just not the one particular feature. So don't worry too much about it. And this is just the admin review OpenAI base prompt. Classify the sentiment of the following product condition. Review using exactly one word from this list. And then the actual list is read from the database, which is excellent, good, okay, bad, and terrible. Return only one word from the list and no additional text. Return NA only, which is not applicable, only if the review does not provide enough information, is unrelated to the product's condition, or it is otherwise impossible to confidently classify the product's condition. Review, and then of course the free text review that the administrator provides. Great, and that gets sent to OpenAI, and the sentiment is returned to the application. But you don't have to worry too much about this. But if you do want to see that in action, you will need to get your own OpenAI key. This one will be inactive by the time you go through this video. Okay, so before we deploy anything, I just want to confirm that everything is working correctly. So firstly, I want to cd into the GarageSale directory, because we're currently in the GarageSale deploy directory, right? So now we're in the correct directory. We can spin up our containers by running this docker-compose.dev.yaml file. You can see how we've got a docker-compose.yaml file. This is for production, but this is for dev, so we can run our code and use the Hot Reload feature, which is great for when you make real-time changes. You can see them immediately reflected on the UI, which is an excellent feature we can leverage here. This is spinning up the SQL Server container, and we're getting that image from Microsoft here. and the container name is GarageSale-SQL Server. You can see we're pulling in the environment variable for the SA password from the .env file there. So let's go back to dockercompose.dev.yaml. So we're pulling in that environment variable here. So it doesn't matter if we store this within GitHub, because the SA_password value is actually stored outside of any file that is stored within GitHub. And you can see we're exposing port 1433 for the SQL Server database, which is running inside a container. And then we're building our Blazor code, which is the actual functionality of the Blazor application, GarageSale. We're building that into its own image and into a container. And then that is going to be pushed whenever we make a code change. That gets pushed into DockerHub. That image gets pushed into DockerHub. And then when we deploy it from Hostinger, it gets pulled onto our VPS and runs inside the relevant containers within on the relevant VPS on Hostinger. But I'll show you that in action in just a bit. Okay, so great. So let's run the code and see it in action just to make sure everything's working locally before we upload our code into our GarageSale deploy repository. We haven't created that repository yet, but we'll create that in a bit. So we want to run this command, docker compose -f. That's because we want to run a specific Docker Compose file, and this is the dev file. We need to differentiate the dev file from the actual production Docker Compose file. So it's docker-compose and then .dev.yml. YML is short for YAML. And then you want to include the up command there, -d, and then let's give ourselves a bit more room here. Okay, and then --build. We want to build the application. Okay, and that should be good. Let's hit the enter key. No such device build. Oops, sorry. I put a space there for whatever reason. Okay, I made a mistake. I put a space between -- and build, so that's not correct. I've got to run that again. Let's remove that space, and that looks good. Let's run it. Excellent, and now it's creating the relevant containers. So it'll first create the SQL Server container, and it's pulling the relevant image from Microsoft. And then we'll be building our Blazor code into its own container. Okay, brilliant. So that's all running perfectly, and we can now minimize that, and we can actually see our code in action. Let's do that, and it should be running on localhost port 880. Okay, excellent. And that's it. We're now running our application. That all looks good. We can log in. We can log in as someone that's automatically been added. We're actually seeding our data with a few users within a file, within this data folder here. If we go identity seeder, you can see we are loading 5 users: Wendy, John, Bob, Michael, and Kevin. So I'm going to log in as Kevin. He's just an ordinary user, so it's Kevin Anderson. So I'm just going to copy that there. And you can see here is the temporary password here. And this is, of course, wouldn't be great for production, but I'm doing this just for demo purposes. So Kevin Anderson at hotmail.com. Let's put that in the username. And then password is TEMP with a capital T, 123 $! Exclamation point. Let's log in. Excellent. So that's all working perfectly well, and we can go to the home page here, and we can actually go into an individual garage. Let's go to Wendy's garage, and let's buy this. I don't know, what should we buy? This backpack. That looks pretty cool. Let's buy this backpack. Okay, and we can add that to cart. There we go. We've got an item in the cart. Proceed to checkout. Place an order. So everything seems to be working fine. We just wanted to do a cursory test here. Nothing too fantastic. Go to bicycles. Great. Everything's working perfectly. Let's log out. Okay, close that down. So we're happy that everything's working locally, and we can now, I'm going to spin that. I'm going to down those Docker containers through this command, docker compose down. We don't want those running now. Okay, so the next step is we want to create a new repository. So I'm logged into my account. You want to log into your GitHub account and create a new repository. And to create a new repository, you can just do it like this. New repository. And this is going to be called GarageSale deploy, just for simplicity. You wouldn't necessarily want to call your application GarageSale deploy. Not a great name. Obviously, you don't want deploy on the end of it. But just for testing purposes, just to demonstrate this deployment process, I'm going to call this GarageSale deploy. And let's create the repository. Create repository. Perfect. Okay, so now what we want to do is we want to log into DockerHub. So you want to have a DockerHub account. So once you've logged into DockerHub, you want to go to account settings like this. And we need to create a personal access token so that the action, the workflow action, I'll just show you what that code looks like for the workflow action. This is the action that builds and creates the image on the fly when you check in your code into GitHub. So this is a convention.github/workflows. This is a convention where you would store your workflow actions, and this is called deploy.yml, deploy.yaml. And here's the code, build and push to DockerHub. So we need that Docker image pushed to DockerHub, but it needs the right permissions in order to do that. So this is what we're doing here. We are creating a DockerHub token. Okay? So this is why we are creating this token. So let's generate a new token like this, and then we're going to store this token within GitHub, within our repo, so that when the GitHub action runs, it has access to this value. Okay, so we can call our token whatever we like. Let's call it, I don't know, Hostinger DockerHub token. GarageSale, it's a bit of a long name. You don't have to call it this, call it whatever you want, as long as it's a unique name. And we'll just say 90 days for the expiry date, and this should be read, write, delete. And let's create our access token. Perfect. And then you just want to copy that to your clipboard, and you want to stow that away somewhere safe. So I'm just going to copy it right there for now, because we're going to now save that as a secret within the relevant repo, the GarageSale deploy repo. Great, so I've got that there, and my account name is Gavin Lon, so I can remember that. I'm not going to bother putting that in Notepad. Okay, and let's go over to the repo. So if you're not logged into GitHub, you want to log into GitHub, and you want to go to your GarageSale deploy repo. And then you go to settings, and then you go to secrets and variables, go to actions, and then you want to create a new repository secret. So let's do that, new repository secret. And you'll see here that we're referencing this DockerHub _ token secret here. So this must be the name of our repo secret. So just copy that to your clipboard, and that has to be the name. And then go to Notepad, wherever you stored your API key for DockerHub. Copy that to your clipboard. Let's go back to GitHub and then save our repository secret here. Add secret. So we've got DockerHub token saved there. We want to create a new repository secret, and this one must be called DockerHub username, because of course we are referencing the username within our workflow action code like this. So it must be named DockerHub _ username like that. So let's paste that in there, and my DockerHub username is Gavin Lon, so yours will of course be different to mine depending on what your account name is on GitHub, what your username is on, DockerHub. Great, so Gavin Lon, and let's add that as a secret. And now our action, when it runs, bear in mind it's going to run, our GitHub action is going to run every time you check in new code. And this is because we want a new container built every time on Hostinger, because we want those changes, the code changes, to automatically propagate through for our CI/CD, continuous integration, continuous deployment pipeline. So that is why we are doing all of this. We're going to all this trouble, but it's a one-off setup. Once it's in place, you've got an awesome CI/CD pipeline that you can use, and it just creates this amazingly efficient workflow where you've got a pipeline from your code straight to Hostinger, and you'll see how this works. It really is great. Okay, so one thing I want to point out to you is that when the deploy.yaml file runs as a consequence of checking in your latest code into the GitHub repo, you can see here that images is set to my DockerHub username /GarageSale. So before you check in your latest code, you will need to change this to your DockerHub username. So find out what your username is, and then replace Gavin Lon with whatever your username is here, basically. It's going to try and build the image as Gavin Lon /GarageSale, which is invalid. It's got to be your DockerHub username here. And the same applies to docker-compose.yaml. So if we go into this file here, we've got the image being built. This is the image that will get pulled from DockerHub onto your VPS hosted on Hostinger. So this must be your DockerHub username / then GarageSale. And then latest just refers to the latest version of the image. This is just the way I've tagged it up. You can tag it up in various different ways. We haven't gone into the detail of tagging your images. So this is sort of like a generic way of ensuring that the latest version of the container is pulled down to your VPS when deployment occurs. So you are checking your code in. This runs. This builds the latest image of your Blazor code, the Docker, the definition for the Docker container that will house your Blazor application. So this is what's going on here. It's building that from the code that you're checking in to GitHub. It's creating that image, and then it's pushing that to DockerHub, to a repo on DockerHub. And that's at the point where you check in. You can see it here, build and push to DockerHub. That's what it's doing. And when you check in your code, it's building and pushing the latest code. It's compiling that code into an image, and then that image is pushed onto DockerHub, and it must have your account name there rather than Gavin Lon, of course. And then when you do the final deployment from Hostinger, you click that deploy button, it's pulling that latest Docker image from DockerHub onto the VPS. And that is the crux of how the CI/CD pipeline is working. So you can see here, if we go to the docker-compose.dev.yaml file, it just builds the image based on the dockerfile.dev image here, which includes functionality for your hot reload. So you can leverage hot reload during development. But that's why these two are very different. But when your code is checked in, it's building the image and pushing that to DockerHub. And that's why it's so important that Gavin Lon be replaced in your code with whatever your DockerHub username is. And then just to reiterate, docker-compose.yaml, this is the production version of the Docker Compose file, must also have this replaced on your code, must be replaced with whatever your DockerHub username is. Great. What I need to do is sever my connection, as it were, to the GarageSale repo because I want to now check this code into GarageSale deploy. You won't have to do this because you're not the owner of the GarageSale repo from which we cloned this code. So I'm the owner, so I have to sever that connection because I want to now connect this code to GarageSale deploy on GitHub, on the remote location on GitHub. So I want to connect this local code to the GarageSale deploy repo hosted obviously remotely on GitHub. So that's why I'm doing this. So to do that, if you're running PowerShell, you want to type in this command, but you don't have to run it because you're not the owner of the GarageSale repo, but I am, so I have to run this code. So it's remove item dash recurse like that, then dash force like that, and then dot git. So we're removing all the dot git local files basically. Well, that's what I have to do. You won't have to do it because you're not the owner of the GarageSale repository. Okay, so that seems to have worked correctly. So I guess we can test that by making a change here, saving it, and it's not checking anything out. So those git files have been removed. Excellent. So all I did there was just add a space and then save it. Ordinarily, if you were connected to the remote repo, you could visibly see it checking the code out. You'd see that within your IDE, within your Solution Explorer here. Okay, so now that I've done that, I'm just going to clear the terminal. And we need to create our local repository first. And to do that, we just type git init like this. Okay, and you can visibly see that it's created our repo, our local repo. And then we want to add the files to our local repo, and it's just git add dot for current directory. Do that there. It's adding all those files to the local repository we've just created. And then we want to commit those files. So commit -m for message. You've got to have the -m. And we're just going to put in initial create like this. And we're going to commit those files. And you can see all the status there. And those are no longer green, meaning we've committed those files to our local version of the repository. Okay. Let's clear that because there's a lot of stuff there. And now let's add our remote repository, and yours will be different to mine. So git remote add origin like this, and then https, just going to give myself some room here, :// and then it's github.com / now this will be your account, your user account name, your GitHub account name. Mine's Gavin Lon Digital, so yours will of course be different to mine. And then garage, whatever you've called your repository, and I've called mine GarageSale deploy for simplicity, and then .git like this. So we are now connecting this local repository to this remote repository hosted here. Okay, let's make sure that looks good. Digital, yeah. Carousel deploy, press enter. Great, so I assume that that has worked correctly. And then want to make sure that it goes to the main branch. So git branch like this. Capital M -capital M main. Great. Okay, and then we want to push this code to the main branch on our new repo, GarageSale deploy. Okay, so let's push that code. Git push -u origin main like that. Great. That's looking good. Okay, as always, we have to be a bit zen here while we wait for our command to progress. Great, that's looking good. We're there. Excellent. So it's pushed that code there. So now if I go to GitHub, oops, that's not GitHub. This is GitHub. We go to code. Our code should be there. And there it is. We got everything there. Crucially, we've got this workflow, and we're about to see that being run now. Okay, so if we go to actions now, you can see the initial create is actually running. Our action is actually running, so it's hopefully going to push the GarageSale image up to DockerHub so that we can then pull it to our VPS on Hostinger, and I'll show you that in just a bit. But first, let's watch this indicator go round and round. If it goes green, it means it's successfully pushed our GarageSale image to DockerHub. Excellent. So we have to be a bit patient here. And this is taking a long time. Okay, excellent. That image has now been pushed to DockerHub. So you should be able to see that repository now actually on your DockerHub account. So let's go to my profile, GarageSale Gavin Lon. So that is now there. www.hostinger.com. Let's go to Hostinger. Okay, I'm going to log in. So I'm now logged in to Hostinger. And this is I've got two virtual private servers, but this is the one I want. I'm going to host my GarageSale application here. So the next thing you want to do is click the Manage button next to your VPS, next to the row that represents your VPS. You can see it's running, all good. And I'm going to click Manage. And I'm going to skip this. And you'll see this pane is available to you. And this is the Docker Manager facility that I was talking about. So I want to click this and go to Projects. And this is how we're going to deploy our application now. So let's go to Compose. And we want to compose from URL. So compose from URL. Let's go to code here on GitHub. Let's go to the Docker Compose YAML file that we're going to use for deployment. It's this one here. So you want to click this raw button here. So we want the URL to the raw version of our Docker Compose file here. And you can see here I'm pulling the latest version of the Docker container, or the Docker image, sorry, not the container, GarageSale image from DockerHub here. And that's what this is all about. Image, gavinlon/GarageSale latest there. So we're copying this URL here, going back to Hostinger, paste that in there. Again, it's automatically created a project name for us, GarageSale deploy, which is perfect. And then let's click the deploy button. You'll see this will fail initially because we haven't set up our environment variables. And the reason it'll fail is because we can't log on to, when it does a health check, it can't log on to the SQL Server database. So we need that password, the SA password, and I'll show you how to do that now. So let's deploy that. And that will fail, but it creates an initial setup for us, this stage. And it's still very, very efficient. Deployment failed. That's okay. That's what I expected. And you'll see if you look at the status output, it's going to be to do with SQL Server waiting, error, dependency SQL failed to start. So that's an expected result, but have no fear. We're on the right track. So the next thing we do is we go to Docker Manager like this, go back to your projects, and you can see it set up a project for us there. And now we can go manage. So we can manage that project and we can add our environment variables here. So let's do that. And I'm going to just copy and paste it from the .env file here. All these settings are there for us. So the first one we want is SA password. And this is the reason it actually failed. So I'm going to click this button here, plus environment, name, SA password, and we can copy that value here, the actual password for the environment variable. Let's paste that in there. Okay, and then we want another environment variable, and this is just the name, DB name. And these are the actual two we want at the moment. We'll put in the other ones to do with OpenAI a little bit later. And the name of the database is GarageSale. Okay, perfect. There. And now we can save and deploy. And that should be successful at this point. Let's try that. Well, that should be successful now. We should have our 2 containers running successfully on our VPS after this deployment. Project deployed. Green tick. That's what we want to see. Okay, now we can just test that that's up and running by going to using our server name. We could also use the IP address, but let's just use the VPS server name there. And if we go :8080, that's where it should be running. And we should be able to see, there we go. Excellent. So now you can see our e-commerce application, our GarageSale application, successfully deployed to a VPS on Hostinger. Excellent. And now that we've got all of that in place, you can see our carousel is automatically scrolling. That's brilliant. And I'm really happy with that. And I just want to show you that the continuous integration, continuous deployment pipeline is working perfectly by doing this little experiment here. So what we're going to do is run our code locally, and you'll see that I'm able, through this docker compose.dev.yaml file, I'm able to leverage Hot Reload locally. And then when I deploy a change that I'm going to make, a very small change, you'll see how quickly that propagates through to Hostinger. Okay, so let's run this now. Okay, I'm going to leverage the docker compose dev file. So docker compose, let's give ourselves a bit of space here. And then /f, and then we want to include the name of the file that we're using, which is docker-compose.dev.yaml. Then we mustn't forget to include the up command, and then it's -d. We want to run it in detach mode, and we want to build our Blazor application. So don't forget to include the --build command, and I think that looks good. Okay, let's run it. Excellent. So it's building our containers, the SQL Server container and the Blazor container. And then you'll see what magic we can work here. So there we go. There's our status. It's building the Blazor app in its container, and it's also building the SQL Server app, and it's done its health check. It's checked the GarageSale-SQL Server container, and it's healthy. So that's up and running. Okay, and now we can, what I want to do is place this in the left side of our screen, and then I want to place our browser in the right-hand side of our screen. You can see that's the live version of the app. And now this is the dev version of the app. So we go localhost 8080. Okay, so we're now running the dev version here. And we've got the live version there. You can see I'm using my VPS name in the URL there. It's not secured. We can secure it properly later on and deploy it with a proper domain name, a proper DNS, a proper name for your website, like, GarageSale.com or whatever you want to give it. That can all be done through Hostinger. I'm not going to do that for this demonstration, just for simplicity's sake, but we can do that in another video. But for now, let's go to the local version of our app here. And all I want to do is make a basic cosmetic change, and we want to propagate that through to live. And you can see our continuous integration, continuous deployment pipeline in action. So all I'm going to do is make this price a bit larger. And here we'll see how we can do that without actually stopping the application. We can make a code change and see it reflected on the front end because we're using Blazor's Hot Reload feature, which is just awesome. Okay, so let's do that. So we want to go to the right component here. And by convention, we can include a dedicated CSS file for a particular component. And all we do is through this naming convention, we can do that. So we've got product.razor, which represents a product. So here's the code for the product. Okay. And then the style sheet for the product.razor component is product.razor.css. And here we're going to make our change. Okay. So let's go solve some room here. So we're going to make, we've decided that here's the requirement. We want to adjust this particular style sheet. And we want to change its font size to 3 rem rather than 1 rem. So you'll hopefully see that price. You'll hopefully see the price now enlarge in real time as we change it. So change that to 3 rem, not 31. That'll be too big. 3 rem. Now when I save it by pressing Control S, look at that. In real time, it changes the font size accordingly. So change it to an even bigger size, just for good measure. Change that to 5 rem, save it. A little bit of a delay, but there it is. Excellent. So I'm going to change that back to 3 because I think that's a reasonable font size. Actually, let's keep it on 5. I'm actually going to keep it on 5 because then the change is more apparent. We can actually go straight to this IP address, but let's use the name of the server. So what we want to do is see port 8080. That's where our application is running on Hostinger. So that's the name of my VPS, virtual private server. We can go there and we can see the same application running here. And you can see the difference in font size is quite apparent. Okay, so you can see that the difference between the product price, this is obviously the product production server. This is our VPS. And you can see on our local machine, we've got a giant 5 rem price there. And this is still at 1 rem. So you can see you've got a 5 rem font size, which looks ridiculously large on our local machine, running on our local machine. And we've got a normal sized font at 1 rem running on Hostinger there. And in real time, we can change the price on our local machine, the size for the product price on our local machine there. And Hot Reload will work. It'll change that price in real time for us. And you can see that there. And let's change it to, say, 3. Okay, and that's kind of a reasonable price size, I think. Let's actually leave it at 3 because I'm going to now deploy this application to Hostinger just by checking in the code. That's all we have to do now. And then you'll be able to see that this price size, when we refresh it a bit later, this price size will change to this price size. Okay, so let's do that. Let's go here and let's check in our code. Okay, great. So I'm just going to clear that and we're going to check our code in. And the first thing we want to do is go git add dot like this. Okay, and then let's git commit those changes. So let's include a message. Okay, I've changed quite a few things, but I'm just going to say change the price font size change, product price, font size change. Okay. Oops. Go back here. Product price, font size change. So let's commit those changes. So I've actually changed a few things. I had to change the relevant Docker Compose files to get Hot Reload working for Windows. But the one that I'm concerned with is the font size for the product price here. That's the main change that I'm interested in at this point. So we can now push those changes to the remote GitHub repository. So it's the GarageSale deploy repository, and it should just automatically publish that change to Hostinger. And this tests that our continuous integration, continuous deployment pipeline is now in place. Let's press enter and off it goes. Great. So it's checked those changes in, and that should have kicked off our workflow. So if we go here to GitHub, let's go into GarageSale deploy. So we find that repository. There it is, GarageSale deploy. And you can see this is giving us some status here. That's to do with the deployment, the running of the workflow action, the action workflow. So if we go to actions here, you can see product price, font size change. So that's running in the background there. And we just need to wait for that to finish. Excellent. So the tick has turned green, which means our deployment has been successful. And now we're on the live Hostinger application here, and we've got the local version running here. I'm just going to, so you can see here, I just want to point out the large font size. This is the local change we made. We made the price of the products much larger on the UI. And now if we go to the one hosted on Hostinger, so now that has turned green. It means our workflow action has successfully completed. And now all we do is click the deploy button on Hostinger here. So we've gone into Docker Manager. We've gone into projects here. Here's our project. We go to manage, compose a project. And all we do now for our GarageSale project is we click the deploy button. And you can see it's now deploying the newly created image as a container on our VPS. And we've got a nice little indicator here, progress indicator, which will tell us once the deployment has completed. And what that's doing is it's pulling the image, the new image, down from DockerHub. Project deployed, and that was really quick. And now, look at that. The font has been enlarged. So now our fonts are exactly the same. Excellent. So we've got a continuous integration, continuous deployment pipeline in place. So we don't have to worry about all the details of this again. All we do is we check in our code, we monitor our workflow, and then click the deploy button on Hostinger for the relevant project. And once it's deployed, it automatically refreshes and shows up here with the new changes that we made locally. And that's it. Excellent. Okay, one thing I'd like to fix is the AI functionality. This is when an admin logs on and reviews the various products, sends those reviews off to OpenAI with a base prompt, and the OpenAI sends back one word, basically summarizing in one word the sentiment behind the review of the product. So at the moment, this won't work because if we go to Hostinger, I'm just going to go to manage my VPS here. Skip this. And if we go to Docker Manager, then we've got our project here for our GarageSale application. And if we go to manage, compose an application, we've got this visual interface here, this visual editor here, where we can actually edit and configure our containers and even our Docker Compose file if we want to. That's our Docker Compose file. And at the moment, we've just got these two environment variables set up, and that's to do with the SQL Server database that the Blazor application references. So let's go to the visual editor. What we want to do is add two environment variables. We've only got two environment variables set up at the moment, and that takes care of us connecting to the database, no problem. But we currently cannot interface with OpenAI to make our AI functionality work within our application without the various environment variables. Here are the two environment variables we need to add. One is called OpenAI_key, and you can see we've got a key here. You will have to create your own key through OpenAI in order to get this working. So to do that, you would have to go to, let me just quickly show you. So go to Google, let's go OpenAI API. Go in here. So we go to the API platform, and if we go log in, you go API platform here, and then you can create your account and you'll be able to generate an API key. I'm just going to quickly log in. So to do that, you go to API keys. Once you've created an account, you can see here's my GarageSale key that I generated. That's this key. That's this key here that I've got configured in my .env file. That allows me to securely access the relevant OpenAI API endpoint. So all you do is you go create new secret key and give your key a sensible name, and default project, give it a sensible name, create secret key, and then you just configure it within your application. When you're running it in dev, you configure it here, and then once you've deployed the application to Hostinger, you want to configure it like this here on Hostinger. And so we're within Docker Manager facility here on Hostinger. We've got a view of our project. That's the GarageSale app, GarageSale SQL Server, or our containers running within this Docker Manager project. And what we're going to do using the visual editor is add those environment variables. But let me just show you quickly how the how the AI functionality doesn't work at the moment. So I'm just going to log in as the admin. Michael Thompson at hotmail.com. This is our admin. Michael Thompson at Hotmail. That looks good. And the password is capital ADMIN 123 $! Let's log in. Great. So we're logged in as an administrator. And if we go to, say, this product here, and we go to the review product condition, you can see we've clicked the review product condition button that is only available to an administrator. And now we can actually create our admin review of the product. Actually, I'm just going to find another product. Let's review this camera. Okay. So I'm going to hit this button here, which is only available to administrators, and we can go into the review product condition page here, and let's just say I was super impressed with the condition of this camera. Now, ordinarily, this would bring back a sentiment. When we click Save Review, it would bring back one word representing the sentiment, which is either excellent, good, bad, okay, or terrible. In this particular case, clearly the sentiment would be excellent. But let's press the Save Review button and see what happens. Okay, OpenAI did not return a recognized sentiment. Please try again. And that's because we haven't configured the relevant OpenAI environment variables, and that's what we're going to do now. So to do that, let's go plus environment there. So it's this plus environment button, and we've got this OpenAI key that we want to add. So let's add that name, OpenAI key, and then we want to get this here. Okay, go to the end here and select the entire key. Make sure we're getting that. Control C. And I'm going to paste that in there like this. And I'm going to not save just yet. So we're going to go plus environment. We got one more key that we want to add. Key, and of course its associated value, and that's called admin review OpenAI prompt. And this is the base prompt. And I'll explain this in more detail in just a bit, but for now, let's just add that setting. We do need it to make our base prompt work, and I'm going to just grab this entire string here, which helps OpenAI classify the sentiment of the admin review, and then we just click Save and Deploy. Okay, and you can see this indicator here, saving the application and deploying it, hopefully. Okay, application deployed. That's looking good. And it's running. So we've got the GarageSale app container up and running, GarageSale -SQL Server up and running. And if we go into our application here, I'm just going to refresh it. I don't actually think we need to refresh it. I think it would have refreshed automatically. But let's go in. Let's log in now as the admin. So Michael Thompson at hotmail.com, like that. And then capital A, D, M, I, N, 1, 2, 3, $, exclamation point. Let's click the login button, and we're logged in. And now we can add a review, hopefully successfully this time. So let's go to this same product here, and we've got this review product condition button available, which is only available to admin members of the admin role, which is what Michael is, who we're logged on as. Okay, and now let's add our review. The condition of this product amazed me. It is simply outstanding. Let's say fantastic, rather. Simply fantastic. And let's see what happens now when we click the Save Review button. Hopefully that's successfully going to go. And there we go. Sentiment excellent. So now we've added our AI functionality successfully, and just for good measure, let's, oh, I didn't spell fantastic right, but it still was able to deduce what sentiment should be brought back. Okay, let's say the condition was very poor. I was extremely disappointed. Okay, and if we click the Save Review button, sentiment, terrible. The condition of the product has been summed up as terrible, and that is saved in relation to this particular product, this particular camera. So if we go to the home page here, you'll see that that camera is very low in the order of products because it is in such poor condition. You can see it right at the bottom there. And we can go to that product and we can actually amend that review. But that's let's just say that that's the accurate review for this product. Excellent. So it's right at the end because this condition is terrible. So we position it right at the end. So the good products are positioned at the top here for the user's convenience, and the poor products are positioned toward the end. Okay, excellent. So we've solved that problem. We've added intelligence to the application by integrating OpenAI into the GarageSale app, into our e-commerce application. Excellent. Let's log out. Perfect. This prompt is sent to the OpenAI API whenever an administrator wants the system to analyze a product's condition based on a written review. Rather than asking the AI to generate a detailed explanation, the prompt gives it a very specific task. Classify the condition of the product into a predefined category. The prompt contains 2 placeholders that are replaced before it is sent to OpenAI. Sentiment, which is encased in curly braces, contains the list of valid condition ratings, such as excellent, good, okay, bad, or terrible. This sentiment list is retrieved from the database. Admin review is also encased in curly braces and contains the text entered by the administrator in natural language, and which describes the product's condition. The prompt then instructs the AI to choose exactly 1 word from the list of valid ratings. By telling the model to return 1 word, only 1 word from the list, and no additional text, the application ensures that the response is predictable and can be processed automatically by the software. The prompt also includes an important safeguard. If the review doesn't contain enough information, isn't related to the product's condition, or the AI can't confidently determine the correct rating, it is instructed to return NA instead. NA stands for not applicable. This prevents the application from assigning an inaccurate condition rating when the available information is insufficient. So overall, this is an example of structured prompt engineering. Instead of asking a broad question and receiving a lengthy response, the prompt is carefully designed to produce a consistent, machine-readable output that the GarageSale application can immediately use to update product information. Right, so let's look at an overview of the design of the GarageSale database. This database supports an online marketplace where ASP.NET Core Identity application user is the central entity for both buyers and sellers. Each user stores personal profile information, can create a seller profile through a one-to-one relationship with seller details, and can select preferred product categories through the Categories to Users many-to-many junction table, allowing the system to prioritize relevant products when the user logs in. Products are listed by sellers and are linked to a single category and condition rating, with each product having an availability status indicating whether it is available or sold. Buyers can add products to their shopping cart where the product, seller, and price are recorded to preserve historical pricing. When a purchase is completed, an order is created for the buyer containing 1 or more order items that capture the purchased products, seller details, and purchase price. Together, these relationships provide a normalized, scalable database design that supports user management, product listings, shopping, and order processing while maintaining referential integrity and historical transaction data. Okay, so if you want to inspect your data through a graphical user interface, a really good solution for inspecting a database hosted within a Docker container is using the SQL Server extension provided by Microsoft. And I've actually already installed that, but it's very easy to install this extension. So let's go to the Extensions tab here. And you can see here, this is the one you want to look for. SQL Server MS SQL, provided by Microsoft, and just install it. And once that's installed, you set up a connection. So to install it, of course, you just can do a search here, SQL Server, and it will come up there. And then you press the install button. Mine's set to uninstall because obviously I've installed it. Okay, and so let's go to the Solution Explorer window here. And because I've installed that, you should see a menu option available to you, or it will appear as with a database symbol in this panel here, this small panel here, or this bar on the left. And then you can just click it. So here we go, it's SQL Server. So firstly, before we add the connection, we need to run the application. Right, so now that we've got our SQL Server extension installed, you can actually see that you've got this icon within this left-hand bar here, which means you have access to the functionality of that extension. And to add a connection, you can just press this button here, and now you can add a connection. But firstly, we want to make our container that contains the SQL Server database up and running. And we're going to use Docker Compose for that. So we're going to run a Docker Compose command. Let's do that. Docker Compose -f, and then the file name is, of course, docker-compose.dev.yaml, like that, YML for YAML. And then let's run it in detached mode, and let's build the Blazor container. Okay, great. Now our database, whoops, I don't know why I always do this. I keep forgetting the up command here. So we need to include up here for it to work. Okay, and let's press the enter key here. Okay, so we're in the root directory. We're not currently in the project directory. So I need to go cd GarageSale before I run the Docker container. And now we can run the Docker container. Sorry about that. So Docker Compose, then -f, and then Docker compose.dev.yaml up command -d, so we can run it in detached mode, and then build the container. So -build, like that. Great. Let's press the enter key. Excellent. So it's now running our containers. We're just waiting for the SQL Server container to be up and running. Healthy. Excellent. So that's all up and running. And now we should be able to connect to our SQL Server database. So let's press this plus icon here for add connection. Okay. And let's just move that down a bit. And we've got this panel here where we can add a profile. I'm just going to call this profile 1, whatever. Okay, and then the server is just local host, like that. 1433 is the correct port. We want a SQL login. We want trust server certificate. So I'm going to click that. I'm going to check that. Okay, so that's checked. And then I'm going to include the SA user. And the password for the SA user is capital G, ARAGE, garage, and then capital S, sale, ALE, underscore, then capital S, TR, and then it's a 0, NG, exclamation mark, like that. Perfect. Okay, so let's enter the database name in manually. So the database name is GarageSale, so it's just GarageSale, like that. And let's test that connection. Okay, network-related or instance-specific error occurred while establishing a connection to SQL Server. The server was not found or was not accessible. Verify that the instance name is correct and the SQL Server is configured to allow remote connections. Okay, that should have worked. 1433. Okay. I don't think, sorry, it said 1433, but I don't think, as a suggestion, but I don't think it was confirmed. So I think that's the problem. 143, and let's try test the connection again. There it is, test connection. So that's gone through. Sorry, I hadn't entered 1433. It had suggested 1433. That's why the text was grayed, and I assumed that it had for some reason entered that as a default, but it hadn't. So I hadn't entered that in there. That's why that failed. So anyway, that's good because you've seen what it looks like when it fails. But we have actually been able to connect to the SQL Server database running within the container. So I'm going to actually connect now. We've tested the connection. Let's connect. And we've established a connection now. And this is really what I want to show you, is this is quite a useful utility because you can now look at the tables. And if we look here, we've got all the identity tables set up here. We've set up a few users here. So if we look here, you can see the columns of the database: ID, username, normalized username, email, password hash. It hashes the password stored in this column for when you register a user. And you can actually perform queries against the table. So select top 1000, and it writes out the correct SQL statement and performs the query for you. And you can see the users: Bob Jones, Robert McLeod, Kevin Anderson, Wendy Daniels, John Bale, and you can see all their details, the extended fields that I created, the first name of the user, and all the fields are there. And if we go to roles, you can see the roles here. Okay, so this is actually users to roles. So this is a join table, but you can actually see the actual roles at ASP.NET roles. If we go select top 1000 there, you've got admin, user, and the seller role here. And we logged on as admin, for example. Michael Thompson is the only administrator that I've configured in the application. And then you've got users also, and you've got your queries here, query history. So if we select, let's run this query here, select all the users, and you can see the various users that have been automatically loaded into the system here. So this gives you a great utility where you can run queries directly against the database. This can be great, of course, for debugging purposes. You can see what's going on with your data under the hood, as it were, when you're developing your application. Excellent. Congratulations on completing the course. We've built and deployed a complete Blazor e-commerce application running on .NET 10, containerized it with Docker, and deployed it to a Hostinger VPS using a fully automated CI/CD pipeline with GitHub Actions. Along the way, you've seen how Docker, Blazor Hot Reload, Docker Compose, and Hostinger's Docker Manager work together to create a fast, consistent development experience and a reliable production environment. I hope you found this course both enjoyable and valuable. If you did, please consider giving the video a like, subscribe to the channel, and please share this video with anyone who you feel might find it useful. If you'd like to thank me by buying me a coffee, you can do that at my Buy Me a Coffee webpage at this URL. It will, of course, be greatly appreciated. Please let me know in the comments section what you're currently building and what technologies you're using. And I'd be absolutely fascinated as to where in the world you are commenting from. Of course, all comments are welcome. Your insights are always greatly valued. I love reading your comments. It would be great if you followed me on X. My username is @GavinLonDigital. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you, and take care.